All right, diving into Italian wines today, and wow, you weren't kidding about the research. Maps, grapes, even Italian wine associations. This is amazing.
It's fascinating stuff. It goes way beyond just tasting notes. It's history, culture, the evolution of winemaking in one of the most famous wine regions in the world.
So much to unpack. It feels like Italy and winemaking have been a thing since, like, forever. Where do we even start?
Let's go way back, like ancient Etruscans, back even before the Roman Empire. They were already cultivating vines, basically laying the groundwork for Italian wine as we know it.
The Etruscans always ahead of the curve, but then boom, the Romans show up. They must have seen this whole wine thing and thought, yeah, we can work with this.
They did more than work with it. They built an empire on it. One of your sources, Vinos d'Italia, actually talks about how they even worshipped Bacchus,
Yeah.
the god of wine. It shows just how deeply wine was ingrained in their culture.
Talk about taking your love for wine seriously, but what happened after the Roman Empire? That's a lot of history to just, like, vanish.
Okay, so this is where it gets really cool. The church, mainly the monasteries, they became the unexpected heroes of Italian winemaking. During the Middle Ages, they didn't just keep the tradition alive, they took it to another level.
Wait, so we're not talking just, like, communion wine here.
No way. We're talking serious cultivation, experimentation, you name it. They saw wine as a gift, something sacred, so quality was everything. Like, your research mentions this technique they used called field blending, basically planting different grape varieties together in the same vineyard. Today it's pretty common, but back then it was revolutionary, creating complex flavors, wines with a real sense of place.
Imagine the knowledge passed down through all those generations of monks just perfecting their craft. They were like the original sommeliers. Okay, fast forward to today, and let's be real for a sec. Picking out an Italian wine can be a little intimidating. All those labels, the unfamiliar names and terms, it's like a puzzle.
It can definitely feel that way. But that's what's great about the Italian wine classification system. It's actually a really helpful tool. It basically creates a hierarchy from your everyday Vino da Tavola to the super prestigious DOCG wines.
Okay, so Vino da Tavola, that's like the friendly phase, your everyday table wine, no strict rules, just good taste. What about IGT? I see that on some bottles.
Exactly. Think of Vino da Tavola as your go-to for casual meals, easy drinking. Now, IGT, that stands for Indicazione Geographica Tipica. So it means the wine has a specific geographical origin. It's a step up in terms of regional typicity.
IGT, a taste of place, I like it. But then it's DOC and DOCG, those are the big leagues, right?
You got it. Denominazione di origine controllata, or DOC. That means the wine follows specific rules for its region, the grape varieties they use, aging methods, all of it. It's all about guaranteeing the origin and quality.
And DOCG, that's like the VIP section of Italian wines.
Exactly. G stands for garantita, which means guaranteed.
Mm-hmm.
These wines go through really strict testing. We're talking Barolo, Brunello di Montalcino, the icons.
So for those of us who aren't like walking wine encyclopedias, what's the key takeaway for navigating all these classifications?
Think of it like a treasure map, but for finding your perfect bottle of wine. You want something complex and classic? Go for a DOCG. Feeling adventurous? Want to explore a specific region? IGT is a great choice.
I love that, a treasure map for Italian wine. You've officially demystified those labels. This is great.
Happy to help.
Okay, we've done history, we've done classifications, but now it's time for the stars of the show, the grapes themselves. Italy has a grape for, like, every taste preference imaginable.
It really does. Your research highlights some real Italian classics. Let's start with Sangiovese. It's almost impossible to talk about Italian reds without it.
Sangiovese, the heart of Chianti Classico. Just hearing the name makes me think of Tuscany, beautiful vineyards, amazing food.
And for good reason. Sangiovese is all about bright acidity, those vibrant cherry and plum flavors, and often you get this savory note too, like leather or even tobacco.
I'm also seeing a lot about Nebbiolo in what you sent over. What's the story there?
Nebbiolo is in a league of its own. It's what makes Barolo and Barbaresco so special. They're known for aging incredibly well, having this tannic structure and these complex aromas.
Wait, when you say complex aromas, what does that actually mean? Like, we're talking beyond just fruity or floral, right?
Oh, absolutely. Nebbiolo has this incredible depth. It really reflects where it's grown. Think roses, tar, truffles. You might even catch a hint of licorice. And that's where the idea of terroir becomes really important.
Terroir. Okay, that's one of those wine words I hear all the time, but could never quite grasp.
It's basically the whole natural environment where the grapes are grown, the
Yeah.
soil, the climate, the altitude, even how much sun it gets. Nebbiolo is super sensitive to those things. So when you drink a Barolo, you're tasting the terroir of the Piedmont region, the essence of that place.
Now that's a deep dive. Okay, try a Barolo, noted. What other Italian reds should we have on our radar?
We can't forget about Barbera. It's another one of those Piedmont heavy hitters, but a little more approachable.
Barbera approachable. Okay, I like the sound of that already. So we're talking like juicy fruit, refreshing acidity, the kind of wine you can open on a weeknight.
Exactly. Think like cherry, plum, you even get a little licorice sometimes. It's super food-friendly, embodies that whole Italian joy of living. But we can't just talk about reds. Italy's got some killer white wines, too.
Oh, right. Almost forgot about the whites. Hit me with your best shot.
Ever had Vermentino?
Vermentino. Rings a bell. Remind me what it's all about.
It's crisp, aromatic, perfect for a sunny day. It's usually grown in coastal regions, soaks up that sunshine, develops these lovely citrus and floral notes.
Citrus and floral. Music to my ears. I can practically feel the Mediterranean breeze.
It'll transport you there. Now for something completely different, let's head over to Campania. Try a Greco di Tufo.
Campania, home to Naples, Pompeii, right. So we've got history, A&D, volcanic wines. Sign me up. What's so unique about this one?
Greco di Tufo is all about the minerality. You get this like flintiness along with aromas of pear, almonds, a touch of honey. It's the volcanic soil that gives it that character.
Volcanic minerality, definitely not a phrase I use every day. It's amazing how the land, the soil, even volcanic eruptions can shape the taste of a wine.
That's what's so cool about it. And that actually brings us to a really important point about Italian wine in general. The connection between the Rhine and where it's grown is everything.
Totally. It's like you can read a recipe or you can taste a dish made with fresh local ingredients. It makes all the difference.
100%. Think about Tuscany, Sangiovese country. The rolling hills, the sun, that Mediterranean climate, you taste it all in the glass.
You know, you're totally taking me back to a trip I took to Florence a while ago. We visited this little family vineyard in Chianti, and the passion those winemakers had for their craft, for the land itself, it was incredible.
That's the magic of Italian wine. It's a story in every bottle, and every region tells a different one. If Tuscany is about romance, then Piedmont up in the foothills of the Alps, that's power and complexity.
Power and complexity. Now you're speaking my language. Back to Nebbiolo, right?
You know it. Piedmont is where Nebbiolo truly shines. That cooler climate, the hilly terrain, that's what gives Barolo and Barbaresco their aging potential.
The king of wines and the queen of long. I'm reading about how long these wines can age. We're talking decades.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And when you finally get to try a bottle, you're not just tasting the grape, but years of careful work, the tradition. Those vineyards are on steep slopes, everything's hand-harvested, then aged in oak barrels, sometimes for years.
Makes you appreciate every drop. Okay, so we've covered Tuscany, Piedmont, 2 regions down. How many more to go?
Italy has 20 wine regions in total, but let's jump from the mountains to the coast. Ready for a trip to Veneto, home of Prosecco.
Ah, Prosecco. Now we're talking. Bubbly, celebratory, always a good time. I have to admit, though, I don't really know that much about where it comes from.
Veneto's in northeastern Italy. It's a region full of contrasts. You know, you've got the Dolomites, those majestic mountains, then you have the canals of Venice, and in between it all are these rolling hills covered in glera vines. That's the grape behind Prosecco.
So it's not all gondolas and romance. Some serious winemaking happening beneath the surface.
For sure. Prosecco is popular for a reason. It's fun, it's approachable, but there's a real art to creating those bubbles.
Like a magic trick. You don't see the work behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm ready for more regional adventures. What else is out there?
Let's go south to Puglia. It's the heel of Italy's boot, known for intense sunshine. Perfect for Primitivo, makes these rich, full-bodied reds.
Puglia, those are the wines that'll put some hair on your chest, right? Big alcohol, bold flavor.
They've definitely got a reputation for being bold. But Puglia is also home to this new generation of winemakers, and they're crafting these incredible, elegant, balanced Primitivos.
Okay, gotta admit, I might have prejudged Puglia a little bit. Time to expand my horizons. Speaking of, what about Sicily? As an island, they must have some interesting wines, right?
Sicily is a whole other world. Volcanic soils, intense sunshine, ancient grape varieties, it all comes together in the glass.
So volcanic soils again. It's like Italy has a wine for every type of geology.
Wow.
What should we look out for in Sicily?
Nero d'Avola is one to try. Think smoky minerality, bright acidity, dark fruit flavors, spices, really unique wines.
This is turning into a geography lesson as much as a wine tasting. Okay, we've covered so much traditional winemaking, the grapes, all this regional diversity. What's next for Italian wine, though? Is it all about tradition, or are there new trends popping up? So we've talked about the history, the grapes, the regions, but what's on the horizon for Italian wine? What's next?
Well, I haven't seen any futuristic wine drones delivering Barolo just yet. But your research does highlight this interesting tension between tradition and, I guess, like innovation in Italian winemaking. It's this balance of upholding tradition, but also embracing new ideas.
Makes sense. And speaking of new ideas, I'm seeing a lot about organic and biodynamic winemaking. It feels like those are having a moment.
Oh, totally. There's this huge movement towards sustainability right now
Yeah.
and a desire to really like showcase the terroir, organic and biodynamic viticulture, really embrace that.
So it's more than just like a trendy label, it's an entire philosophy. Can you break down the difference for me?
Sure. So organic viticulture, it's all about working with nature. Think natural fertilizers, cover
Mhm.
crops, definitely no synthetic pesticides. It's letting the grapes express themselves.
It's like the farm to table of the wine world. What about biodynamic, though? That one always seemed a little
Yeah.
mystical.
It can definitely sound that way. Biodynamic winemakers see the vineyard as this living organism. They use things like lunar cycles for planting and pruning, special herbal preparations. It's all about balance.
It's really interesting how these old ways of doing things are being picked up by new generations of winemakers. It's cool.
It is. And that's what makes the future of Italian wine so exciting. You have these passionate young winemakers honoring tradition, but also pushing boundaries.
So what does that actually look like? Crazy grape experiments, robots in the vineyard? Fill me in.
It's a mix. Some winemakers are going back to ancient methods, like using clay amphorae instead of oak. They're bringing back forgotten grapes, exploring microclimates, crafting these really unique wines with a story.
Wow. It's like taking the best of the old world and giving it this fresh perspective. So
Yeah.
cool.
And of course, we can't forget about climate change. It's a huge factor. Winemakers in Italy are having to adapt, looking into drought-resistant grapes, sustainable practices, all of that to protect their craft.
It really shows that even something as old as winemaking can change and evolve. After all this, what's your biggest takeaway for someone wanting to learn more about Italian wines?
Don't be afraid to just go for it. Try new regions, new grapes, talk to the people who make and sell the wine, ask questions, just enjoy the journey.
I love that. Be open to new experiences, great advice for wine and for life in general.
Absolutely. Who knows? Your next glass could take you not just to a different part of Italy, but to a different time.
Beautifully put. You know what? I think we've earned ourselves a celebratory glass of something Italian after that. Salutes!